Greetings. Today's talk focuses on the comparisons between Google and some of the most famous, successful companies in Silicon Valley and Tesla. As you can see today, our location is in beautiful Tyson's Corner, and we're early in the morning, so we get free reign of the place. And I'll be posting our Sunday photos as we've talked about previously. The second part of our talk today focuses on what I call Elon Musk self-inflicted wounds and worry. And so I think it'll be fun to sort of move through. Good morning, Jerry. Thanks for joining us. All of you, thanks for joining us, because we can't say hello to everyone because of our viewers have asked us not to do shout outs to everyone, but always appreciate your presence. This is kind of a follow-on to, we did a show on Saturday based on Elon Musk coming on in the New York Times, and he actually expressed some concerns, sort of sadness, worry, Ambien usage, etc. So the first part of our talk today is something I've been thinking about, for like the last year, and I keep being amazed and I keep looking for it, and then all of a sudden I can't find it. So what that is that in the case of Google, for example, when Google was doing search, Microsoft basically announced that they were going to wipe Google out because it's an important marketplace, and they were going to sort of jack Google just like they jacked Netscape with the franchise they had in place. The problem turned out that Google's kind of a natural monopoly. So therefore, the plans that there had to wipe out Google really didn't work out for Microsoft, and Google's market cap is sort of running as though it's going to pass Microsoft pretty soon. In fact, Microsoft offered to buy Google. The next sort of iteration of what occurred was something I call, well, it's interesting because the next iteration of what I wanted to bring forward in this conversation is kind of what happened with the competition between Facebook and Google. Again, Facebook was going to get wiped out by Google, and they made every effort to do so with their Facebook equivalent. But it turns out that Facebook, just like Google, kind of had a natural monopoly when it came to folks who are already online and their friends are online. So Google went by the wayside in terms of their Facebook domination, and they recognized the potential challenge. So I have to admit, I do need to take a break here and just point out, this is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. If you have not liked or subscribed, please do so. We also have Facebook or YouTube and Patreon links, and could use support if possible. So where I'm getting to with all of this, Guten Morgen, where I'm going with all this is, the wonderment I've had is, when is it that the big auto companies are going to roll in and pretty much blow up Tesla? And I just thought it was fascinating because according to the hedge funds and others, Tesla was going to get blown up sometime in the next year or so. And the reason was that the big companies have more money, they have better distribution, they have all these assets that allow them to sort of destroy the company quickly. So what I'm trying to get at here is the fact that what's really going on is that Tesla has a research back end to deliver the products they're delivering right now, especially the batteries. And it's been a disaster with computing firms attempting to sort of wipe out Tesla's advantage. As you all know, nobody else has superchargers. Even before the superchargers, companies like the Nissan Leaf are suffering right now because they do not have any, Nissan Leaf has no superchargers. Nissan Leaf can't be supercharged, otherwise the batteries will explode in flames. So that issue has been fixed as the new iteration of competitors are coming on in terms of rapid charging abilities and a recognition that the nature of this, how the cells are structured, have to fit kind of what Tesla does in order to be competitive, and everybody's moving towards that. But there end up being all these ladders of performance that others cannot do. And so I think it's fascinating basically because on one side of the house, there's this whole discussion of Tesla will be eclipsed quickly by better heeled organizations. On the other side of the house, is Tesla's situation just like with Google relative to Microsoft and Facebook relative to Google, where you have a natural firm that ends up owning 20-25% of the business and everybody else gets the rest? And the way things are going, you know, there is the ultimate constraint of how many batteries are there out there that fit the performance profile to compete with Tesla. And yes, batteries exist, but as you've noticed, even with, if you will, all the money in the world, it's taking Tesla 2 and 3 years to execute the build out of the Gigafactory. So I want to suggest that how this all plays out is the fact that yes, those other companies are huge, yes, they have a lot of money, but the challenge is that I think we end up seeing a situation where the length of time it takes to build effective competition to Tesla is in that 3 to 5 year range. And during that period, Tesla develops a relationship with customers and a footprint that's really hard to unseat once they've been established. My hope is, though, that the way things are looking based on percentage of market share that Tesla has on the cars now, and if those guys aren't careful and they're too slow, you could end up with a 50% market share globally for automobiles for Tesla, you know, in a bunch of key markets, which leaves very little eating space for the remaining companies as we move towards an electric world. So the one fly in this whole, so in general, you know, I just think that everyone is arguing against it, but the ultimate measure of whether or not a firm can wipe somebody else out is in the form of the $100 billion that's been announced and how the big companies are going to, in essence, go after Tesla when it comes to electric vehicles. And despite having all those announcements and all of that money ready to go, nobody else has an on-the-road solution that you can point to deliver something that represents a huge challenge to Tesla. Now, I will change my entire opinion as soon as we see a bunch of superchargers being built by VW and all these other firms. But, you know, stay tuned. We'll let you know when, you know, as this starts changing more. The next part of what I wanted to cover today was really focused on sort of Elon's battle with himself. What I'm getting at here is the fact that Elon did this story in the New York Times, and it basically cost Tesla 5% of the market cap. And I kind of broke it down yesterday in terms of the fact that Elon likes to win, and he comes up with ideas, most of them really good, tries to implement them, and he doesn't like to lose, and the ideas they come up with are fairly well conceived. But I'm just fascinated because it amazes me to watch what he's doing. And in essence, calm, easy to do, working well is not interesting. It's kind of boring. And he really likes to install sort of things that are really cool, interesting, but they also end up, if you will, jeopardizing the company. We've talked about the fact that the $5 billion buyback of Solar City has loaded the company with debt that makes things kind of tough. There's kind of this question mark on Tesla that I thought had been solved with the 5,000 a week. And that question mark, if you will, hasn't been solved in that, you know, the bottom line is that what the New York Times article is saying is that there is a chance that Tesla is still in trouble based on what Elon is talking about in terms of the difficulty of the period. And so he's got to make some tough decisions about ads, changing structure of company, etc. because he's got to get the profitability, because there is really no room for large amounts of debts to be added to the company. And any rate, I'm fascinated because we ain't out the woods yet. I'm hoping it doesn't, the company doesn't get slashed to the ground. I was told by some really smart VCs in Silicon Valley that what's actually going on is there are a lot of people acquiring Tesla's debt. And that way, if they do go into bankruptcy restructuring, the people that drive that restructuring process are the debt holders, because they're the most senior in the dialogue, and most of the equity is wiped out for those that are holding common shares. So bottom line is that we ain't out the woods yet. I'm hoping that Elon will mellow out so that we can get to that profitability zone, and now we can see all the other products coming behind it. But in fact, it is still somewhat precarious. I'm also sort of stunned, fascinated by what Elon has been talking about lately, because I want to call what's going on self-inflicted wounds. As you'll recall, Elon talked about the fact that he's wanting to build a dreadnought factory. And on the one hand, it's a great idea. On the other hand, it's a horrible idea. The great idea is that the more machines you have, you don't have to give retirement benefits. You don't have to give them days off. And so that's good. On the bad side of that is that Tesla is competing with Toyota, which is considered the best assembly entity for automobiles in the world. And the answer is that it's kind of not worked out real well in the whole idea of going to the dreadnought factory. Hence, he's had to rip out a lot of automation and install human beings at key points where it did not work with automation. So Elon is sort of still in a battle to beat Toyota at its own game. As you know, Toyota has developed a concept called lean manufacturing. And part of what Elon and Tesla have been doing is trying to figure out a way is, can we use technology to defeat the Toyota's process of lean manufacturing? And the answer is, it hasn't worked. The other part of the answer that's fascinating is it's kind of working on one part, but not on the other. For example, if you produce a large number of cars, but you have a lot of defects, you're now fixing all those defects. And whatever you saved on automation on the front end, you're losing in defective products on the back end. So I'm hoping that Tesla backs into embracing the Toyota manufacturing process, because it's worked fine on the line of the Model X and S's, and hopefully he expands just basic lean manufacturing principles to the newest vehicles, because it's going to mean fewer defects for consumers, and it's actually going to mean everybody's happy, customers happy. He doesn't get to produce in a factory where the pace of production is at a running speed, but is the goal to get running speed production done, or have cars that people want to buy and use that are not hugely defective? And again, part of the Toyota lean manufacturing process is that they've fixed, in the last 15 years, they've fixed the robotic exposure in their plants at a max of 25%, and Tesla's chasing 75% when it comes to the Model 3. So I feel sorry for Elon Musk in the fact that he's working 120-hour weeks that he describes, and going without sleep and using Ambien to get some sleep. But on the other hand, I'm wondering if you're self-inflicting wounds to yourself, and then you're feeling really bad when you're wounded, because it's like, well, why don't you stop inflicting wounds on yourself? Then you'll be okay and not be wounded, and everything will work fine. And so I'm sort of fascinated by this, because it's almost like, okay, if you know these self-inflicted wounds are going to create certain pain, why do it? Why not just, go for the mellow plan, etc.? And mellow and Elon Musk don't tend to go together. So I'm hopeful, and we'll see how this all works out. But I kind of run you guys through all of this because one of the things that's going on is that there's an article that was in the Wall Street Journal about, I want to say 10 or 12 years ago. And what it talked about is Toyota structures the factory floor in their Michigan plant such that when the plant is running, if there's an issue at one station along the production line, that employee will pull a lever which will stop the entire production line, and then the employees will spread out, go find the defect, fix it, and now you don't have that defect spreading among a large number of cars. So if you look at all the pictures of Tesla's factories, there are no stop production levers within a Toyota plant. So as a smart consumer, I know what you're thinking about, which is, hey, if Toyota runs their plants a certain way and they can anticipate defects and take them out before they occur, how is Tesla doing in this regard? And the answer is they're at a very high defect rate relative to the number of cars produced. So basically, you're seeing issues that are popping up as we roll out in that process. So I sort of bringing all this up because it's sad that Elon is in pain and no sleeping, but if he's really occupied, it reduces some of the perfectionism that he gets into that can introduce concepts that end up being really bad news for the company. And when we have constraints on cash, et cetera, that we're in right now relative to him getting to profitability because there's no more room for debt, I'm excited because, hey, he knows what the bogey is. He's got to be focused, and the wiggle room of plenty of cash around so I can have a lot of side pest projects are disappearing. And we're also removing some of the fun sort of sidelights that he's developed over time, you know, that are consuming capital and time. So hope you guys found our discussion useful and interesting. Jerry and Donovan, thanks for signing up. It's fun to hear that you guys are in the Jamaican appreciation department as well. I'm gonna take us out today. Well, I like the conversations you guys have been having about space and Mars, etc. Looks pretty interesting. I'm going to take us out today after my goodbye with a walk through here. You'll notice that there's a large amount of empty space in front of the building that we usually don't see in our photos, but what will be included in our photos is on the side of the building is a truck idling with almost full of Model 3s with one or two Model X's on it as well. Also note the covering that they have on the car is great for dust, and highly recommended you consider getting one of those as well. Also a reminder, I ran into a guy who's a personal trainer today. He suggested that you consider doing 50 squats a day. The reason is that by sitting for long periods of time, your glutes are strengthened, and it sort of gets your whole body moving in a certain direction. So again, I'm pubbing the 5-2 diet or the paleo diet. Try to do 20 leg lifts with 5 pounds on either leg. 30 SPF or better in order to avoid skin cancer. Don't eat within 2 hours of crashing out because it'll help in terms of esophageal cancer, upper respiratory cancer from the bile rolling up on you. So a few health tips there on the sidebar on the as we head out. Want to say tschüss, German, au revoir, French, lehitrot, Hebrew, choda hafez, Farsi. Man, I've got to review what you just put up there, Donovan, from Sweden, and we'll get going from there. At any rate, wanted to thank you once again for taking time out, and please like and subscribe. Could use help on Patreon. We're going to do a little look here. I don't see too many red Model X's, so this is kind of a nice looking vehicle. Heja, heja, okay. Heja is my new word here, and just want to give you guys a look. The Model 3s are definitely dominating in terms of number of vehicles on site. Terrific. Thanks once again for joining us. Look forward to our next talk. Have a great day. Bye for now.